Everybody started out, and he said, wait a minute, I have forgotten one thing. The most important part of this day is to me to give everybody a chance to contribute. Said, we're going to place a hat.
Newcastle, the county seat of Henry County. Henry County population is 13,344. Area square miles, 291. Rank, 68th. Henry County is located in the 4th Congressional District.
I'm Ben Elston, County Judge Executive of County.
Rhonda Carpenter, Henry County Clerk.
Leland Payton, Circuit Court Clerk, Henry County.
What can you tell us about the county itself, when it was formed, a rough estimate, the era when the county was formed, and was it part of other counties prior to it being on its own?
Like as Rhonda said a while ago, I believe probably was formed in early 1800s, and the larger portion of the courthouse was probably built in about 1864.
There were originally 3 log structures that housed the court records. The reason we still have some of our most important marriage records and deed records is that the county clerk kept them in his home here in Newcastle, and they weren't destroyed in the fires.
Smart man. Okay. Something we like to ask everyone is if there were historical figures that perhaps came through the county, that came from the county, that maybe went into some major political positions, either currently or in the past.
Patrick Henry.
Back together, will you tell us a little bit about what you've been doing to the courthouse and renovation?
Well, I came in office in Judge's office in '76, and we done the complete exterior renovation, and the interior renovation in '77. And just approximately a month ago, we renovated the tires, you can say.
If someone said that they decided they'd like to stop through Henry County, what would you tell them to stop and see?
Lake Jericho. It's a watershed conservancy district. It's down 153 right off the interstate. We have a lot of people who do visit that to fish and just to camp.
Independence, Kentucky, the county seat of Kenton County. Kenton County population, 136,992. Area square miles, 163. Rank, 114th. Kenton County is located in the 4th Congressional District.
We're standing right in front of the old Kenton County Courthouse, which is located in Independence, Kentucky. With me today, we have a local historian, Mr. John Blakely. Mr. Blakely, can you tell us why Kenton County has 2 courthouses?
Initially, the county seat was to be located at the center of the county, or as close to the center as possible. However, the population flow and the change in population grew northwardly to Covington, and finally it took a special act of the legislature to permit the court to meet in Covington. Occasionally, the court will meet out here in civil and criminal matters, but most of them are tried in Covington. Insofar as recording deed titles are concerned, those south of the Bank Lake Creek are recorded here at Independence, and those north of Bank Lake Creek are recorded in the Covington Courthouse. The legislature was petitioned to pass a special act to enable the courts to meet in Covington, and that was done. And for all practical purposes, Covington is the county seat, although the initial county seat is Independence, and is probably so recognized at the present time.
Okay. Do you know what the age of this courthouse is?
No, ma'am, I do not. I believe this courthouse was destroyed by fire sometime prior to the turn of the century. The records in Covington, I think, go back to 1862, and the records here in Independence go back from 1862 probably to Alexandria, Kentucky, and then to Fayette County. The exact age of this courthouse, I believe, is approximately 65 years.
Okay. When this county was being formed, was it parceled off from other counties?
Yes, Kentucky was initially a part of Fincastle County, Virginia, and when the name was changed to Kentucky County, a short time after that, Kentucky was made into a state. The three original counties were Lincoln, Jefferson, and Fayette. Campbell County is a part of the initial Fayette County. Now, subsequently, there have been many divisions and subdivisions until you have, I think, 120 counties in the state at the present time. Campbell County was formed out of Fayette, part of Mason County, and I believe a part of Pendleton County. Then from Campbell County was taken, first of all, Boone County and Kenton County, I think, in 1834.
Okay. The age of the courthouse that's located in Covington, when was that built?
Got to think about 1893. I think that was the probable date the Covington Courthouse was erected.
Okay. But that, of course, does not exist, and now there is a new...
That was torn down sometime prior to 1970, and a new courthouse erected at 3rd and Court Street.
Okay. How did Kenton County get its name?
From Simon Kenton, the original and I think foremost pioneer in Kentucky. He was born in 1855, I believe, and I beg your pardon, 1755, and died in 1836. I think his career spanned at one time or another the same lifetime of Daniel Boone and of George Rogers Clark, who also spent a great deal of time in Kentucky. Simon Kenton, who went for a while by the name of Simon Butler because he thought he had killed a man in a fight. Simon Kenton had many claims to lands in Kentucky, but he was cheated out of those lands by some people who were pretty sharp. Eventually, Kenton moved from Kentucky to Ohio, and that is where he died. But he was the foremost pioneer, in my estimation, in the state of Kentucky.
Okay.
I should say the Commonwealth of Kentucky.
Right. Okay. This is not so much an historical question, but something we've been trying to do is promote tourism for each county. If someone said, well, I'm going to come into Kenton County, what would you tell them to see?
Well, the Basilica, the Cathedral Basilica in Covington, Mother of God's Church. I would advise him, first of all, to talk to the natives. I think the people here are very cordial and they're very open. We have no racetracks such as Churchill Downs nor such as Keeneland, but we do have a new track in Boone County called Turfway, I believe. And we have a lot of local history, old homes, and a lot of old inhabitants, of which I am one.
What kind of cultural and sports activities are available to Kenton County?
Well, we're located directly across the river from the Cincinnati Reds baseball team, the Cincinnati Bengals football team, and they have developed a rather large following in Kenton County. As a matter of fact, a number of the Bengals and Cincinnati Reds live in Kenton County.
John, what can you tell us about governors from the northern Kentucky area?
Well, let me start out by saying this. The first 5 governors of Kentucky were Shelby, Garrett, Greenup, Scott, and Madison. Those are the names of the first 5 streets in Covington. The first governor from this area was John W. Stevenson, I believe, sometime subsequent to the Civil War. I could not give you the exact dates, but around the turn of the century, William Goebel was elected governor, at least the Democrats said he was. There was a dispute between him and John Taylor, the Republican, and the dispute went to the legislature, which declared Goebel to be the governor of Kentucky. Goebel was assassinated on the lawn of the old State House in Frankfort in the year 1900. I think it was January of 1900. He took his oath of office on his deathbed, and subsequently J.C.W. Beckham was appointed governor upon his death. There had been a number of candidates from this area since that time, none of which have been successful.
With me, I have Mr. Bill Straw, who is a former county employee. Could you tell us a little bit about what you did for Kenton County?
Well, the last 10 years of my career as a county extension agent, I was located in Kenton County. In fact, our office, most of the time of that 10 years, was in the upstairs of this Kenton County Courthouse located here at Independence. And during that time, we conducted a program of technical agriculture, which farm people were interested in primarily as a way of, the people that make a living out of farming, they're interested in doing it in the most efficient way, and that was our job, to work with them, to keep them up to date in technical agriculture. The control of insects, the production of the crop itself, the use of fertilizers, and then, of course, a branch of the work dealt with the youth and the women of the county, the homemakers, of which I wasn't directly responsible. They had a branch, a division there that headed by the home agent, and then the 4-H club agents that worked with the youth. So it was a very broad program, and it had to do with rural life. And of course, then we also we acted as consultants here in Kenton County. There's about 51% of the county at that time, and it's not getting any less, was urban, and which means that the farms are tending to disappear. And of course, these people have horticultural problems, and we spent a lot of time consulting with individuals about the problems relating to lawns, lawn care, shade trees, and this type of thing, and the home garden, this type of thing.
Okay. Bill, this tree right behind us, what kind of tree is that?
The tree that we're looking at just to my right and your left is an offspring of a new variety of tree called the aristocrat pear. And
Here in front of the Kenton County Courthouse in Independence, Kentucky, is one of the aristocratic pear trees invented by Bill Straw, former county extension agent here in Kenton County. And of course, when I was with Congressman John Breckinridge in Washington, we helped to get this tree, the aristocratic pear tree, planted on the Capitol grounds in Washington, D.C. And since the invention of this tree, Mr. Straw has sold over thousands and thousands of them across the United States because of their hardiness and ability to grow at a rapid rate.
The City of Independence originated on 5 acres of land given by John McCollum in April of 1840. This site was designated to be the exact center of Kenton County. Old Independence is approximately 9 miles south of Covington on Highway 17. The enlarged city today extends to Old DeCourcy Pike on the east and within 1/4 mile of US 25 on the west. It is also served by Turkey Foot Road and Highway 16. It is less than 6 miles from the I-275 and Kentucky 17 interchanges. The elevation is 900 feet above sea level, one of the highest points in Kenton County. The present courthouse was built in 1912 after the first one was destroyed by fire. Napoleon Stephen was the city's first clerk. On county and circuit court days, the small rural city gained importance when prominent attorneys and county officers came from Covington to speak and perform their official duties. Fiscal court now meets in the courthouse once a month. Independent City Council meets there 2 times a month, and the Kenton County Clerk's office is located in the annex, where many of the county records are kept. The Independent City Building is located at 5290 Madison Pike. For many years, Independence remained a small rural community of about 300 in population and 1 square mile in area. In 1960, it began to expand by several annexations and now comprises 14.6 square miles and a population of over 9,000.
Vanceburg, the county seat of Lewis County. Lewis County population, 14,292. Area square miles, 484. Rank 13th. Lewis County is located in the 7th Congressional District.
I'm Betty Dillow of Vanceburg, and I'm past president of the Lewis County Historical Society.
Okay.
Gene Wilson, retired, Vanceburg.
Okay.
Bill Childrey, City Councilman, Vanceburg.
All righty. Betty, what can you tell us about the formation of the county?
Lewis County was formed from Mason County about 1807 and was named for Meriwether Lewis, who was a member of the George Rogers expedition through this area sometime before that date.
Okay. Can you give us a little more in-depth background that we had talked about earlier,
well,
just about the area?
Ours is an area of about all different types of terrain found in Kentucky. We have the hilly areas, the small mountains, and really some of them are quite large. And in some sections we have the wide fertile bottoms of the land along the Ohio River and the Salt Lake and the Kinnickinnick Creek. These two are the main streams in Lewis County. We have the rolling fields and the valleys between the hills and the mountains, and Lewis County has an area of about 486 square miles and a population of about 14,600 estimated, and it's more of an agricultural and forestry area than commercial and industrial. However, timber and wood products are one of the main livelihoods of many Lewis Countyans. We have the United States Shoe Company with 2 plants in Vanceburg, and this provides employments for many of our residents. We still have too many that have to drive miles for employment and leave the county completely. We do need industry badly. Kinnickinnick Creek is our main waterway and runs from Upper Kinney in the Petersville area through most of the northeastern section of the county to enter the Ohio River near Garrison along Kentucky Route 10 East. It is said to lack a mere mile to be long enough to qualify being classified as a river. We have a fine boat dock at the Garrison, up in the Garrison area where the creek goes into the river, and then we have one down here at the mouth of Salt Lake Creek, where a boat dock with facilities for a lot of recreation. And the Kinnickinnick Stream is a fisherman's dream with its fighting muskies and plenty of other varieties of fish. Almost the entire stream can be traveled by small boats or canoe. Salt Lake has a lot of fish in it, and some people prefer Salt Lake fish to the Kinnickinnick. And there's several small man-made lakes and ponds that are stocked by private individuals for fishing. And we have the access to the famous Jenny Wally hiking trail. It can be reached from several different areas of the county, and it's a fine trail for people that like to be in the great outdoors.
Why is it called Salt Lick?
Well, that's in the area where there used to be lots of salt wells, natural salt wells, and that was one reason that our city of Vanceburg was formed, because Joseph Vance and Moses Baird stopped here in 1700 and something and made salt out along the Salt Lick Creek, and they laid out the town of Vanceburg long before it was ever the county seat. And Mr. Vance was in partners, I guess, with Mr. Barrett. Anyhow, they finally decided to call the name town. I think they named it Vanceville first, and then changed it to Vanceburg. And I think Mr. Vance's son or grandson at one time went on to be governor of Ohio. But the Bairds, they lived all around over just across the river area from here for many years.
Okay. What is the age of this courthouse, and what happened to the one prior to it?
Well, it was built, I guess it was torn down. This one was, I think, construction started about 1937 or 8. It was dedicated in 1940. It's made out of native stone, which most of it was quarried up around the Garrison area, I have been told. And most of the work was done by native Lewis Countyans during when the WPA, that's Work Progress Administration, they had work programs to help the counties that didn't have much industry or anything. I guess it was probably all over the country, but we took advantage of it, and the courthouse was built with WPA labor.
Okay, great.
And it was dedicated, as I said, in 1940 in December.
Okay, do you want to tell us a little bit about the memorials here on the grounds?
Mm-hmm. We have, we have the Union Monument, and it is said to be the only Union monument south of the Mason-Dixon line, which is part of the Ohio River, is considered the Mason-Dixon line. And it was built, I don't know whether it was sculptured or cast in concrete or what, I've always wondered, but the money was made up by subscription of the local, the people in the county, and it's dedicated to the ones that lost their life during the Civil War struggle. And my great-grandfather's name's on there.
Great.
And then we have in front of this Civil War monument is a smaller one that has the names of the ones that I believe died in action during the World War I. And inside the courthouse, there's a listing of names of the ones that died during World War II. And on the side there is the Vietnam Memorial that was just dedicated last July 1986. So we pretty well remembered most of our soldiers. So maybe some of them had a rough time when they come back. I don't know.
Okay. I want to ask this council member a question. Can you come back into here? What, as a council member, what do you see as being some of the major problems that your area is faced with?
Well, we need industry terribly bad, and as far as I'm concerned, we probably have more industry sites from one end of the county to the other along the river, and any place from Pittsburgh to Mississippi. And it's a pity that Lewis County has been forgotten all these years. Seems though the other counties all around us get things, but Lewis County is left out. pretty bad.
What about you? What do you think some of the problems are that the county's faced with?
Well, we have the industrial sites and have the largest freshwater reserve in the area. It runs probably 50 miles above Portsmouth and to Maysville, Kentucky. Our main problem is employment and underemployment. At the present time, we're running 25% unemployment, and that is based only on the government figures, and that doesn't take into account the people in the county who never draw their unemployment compensation. Now, I personally left the county for 23 years with a corporation out of Pittsburgh before I retired because of the minimum amount of money that a person could make in this county. We have the largest, longest water front of any county in the state of Kentucky in the mileage. We have some of the best industrial sites. We have no roads. It's a saying in Frankfort that you can go any place in Kentucky and never go through Lewis County. We're setting up here on a point.
Okay.
But our main thing is unemployment and underemployment.
Okay. Betty, can you tell us a little bit about the school system here?
Well, we have a very progressive school system and many dedicated teachers and supervisors. And we have a lot of fine churches and civic groups and organizations, and most of them work hard for Lewis County. And our county has a very nice public library. We're especially pleased with it, and we have a great circulation, and we're fortunate enough to have a bookmobile that travels the almost the entire area of the county about 3 times a week. It goes over the whole county weekly, or the biggest part of it, and it provides books, magazines, newspapers, records, and the talking books, that's for the blind. And it just serves the shut-in people and the people that's in the outlying areas, and we're very well pleased that we're fortunate enough to have the bookmobile.
Louisville, the county seat of Jefferson County. Jefferson County population, 683,949. Area square miles, 386. Rank, 37th. Jefferson County is located in both the 3rd and 4th congressional districts.
To my right, we have Mrs. Lemille Feltz, who is graciously volunteered to provide us with some information about the county of Jefferson. First off, could you tell us a little bit about yourself and your role historically in the area?
Well, I'm Historical Highway Markers Chairman for Jefferson County, connected with the Kentucky Historical Society, and I have been in this position for about 10 years.
What can you tell us about the formation of Jefferson County?
Well, in about 1780, Virginia formed the Kentucky County, which then was named, then they formed 3 counties out of that Kentucky County: Fayette, Lincoln, and Jefferson County. Jefferson was named for Thomas Jefferson. At that time, he was governor of the state of Virginia, and of course this was still in Virginia. Then also Louisville was founded in 1778 by George Rogers Clark. He came down the Ohio River and with few families and settled on Corn Island, which was just across from Louisville in the Ohio River, which it is now has disappeared. And at one time during Collins' history, when he was writing Collins' history, they could still see some stumps that was left on the island. Louisville was named for Louis the 16th of France. He was king of France at the time during our revolution, and they had a treaty with us And that was the time that they sent over Lafayette and many of the other French who helped us in winning the war against England. Jefferson County's border was roughly the Ohio River. The borders were Ohio River, it was south of the Kentucky River, and between the Kentucky River and the Green River. The one thing that really Louisville became important about Louisville's building was the Falls of the Ohio, and that many times they had to take the things off of the boats in Louisville and take them down the river past the falls, which the falls were around 2 and 3 miles, between 2 and 3 miles long. And then they would either build boats or get boats down on the other side and then take the produce or whatever down to New Orleans. And it was at a time, a little bit later, that they built a canal, which made it much more accessible to river traffic. 1806 was the first steamboat here. There was a railroad. The first railroad in this area was the Lexington and Ohio, which was about 1838. Then the canal was built in the early 1800s. Audubon was here at one time. He came as a merchant, but he didn't do much in that respect because he was so busy going out into the wilds and sketching birds and animals that as a merchant he was a failure. But he did spend some time here, and one of his children was born here at the time. Louisville was laid out first in 1773 by Captain Thomas Bullitt, who was an uncle of Alexander Scott Bullitt. And then a little bit later, more of Louisville the town was laid out in 1780 by Colonel William Pope. The courthouse here was built by designed by Gideon Strock, and was built about 1837. It was first used by the city and the county in 1842. It was completed in 1860 by Albert Fink. And then the City Hall just across the 6th Street was built in 1873. I'd like to mention a little bit about two towns that were just below Louisville. First, it was Cameltown, which was incorporated in 1785, which later became Shippingport, and that was one of the places where they reloaded the materials back onto the boats and on to go on down the river. Then there's another, Shippingport was another small town there that was a very industrial town, but it wasn't long until it became both of them became a part of Louisville. Shippingport is no more. It is just where just ground and a park where that was. Some of the earliest settlers was Alexander Scott Bullitt, and of course George Rogers Clark, and Colonel Richard Taylor and Hancock Taylor, brothers came here doing some surveying, and Hancock Taylor was the father of Zachary Taylor, and their home is called Springfield, out east of town, and is still in existence. Then there was Locust Grove, owned by the sister of George Rogers Clark, and in fact George Rogers Clark lived there a while. In fact, he died there. And then Farmington, James Speed's home, and Lincoln was connected with that. He spent a little time with James Speed, that was out on the Bardstown Road. some of the things that are interesting today, we know that you can go any place in the world and they'll ask you if you're from Louisville, have you been to the Derby at Churchill Downs? And then the Louisville Bats are known all over the world, although at present we see here an advertisement saying that they're now in Indiana, and they are, but they're still the Louisville Bats and used by famous ball players. Then the School of the Blind and the printing house for the blind was very early, and it has been in existence here for many years. The Filson Club is one of the best historical clubs in this area, and it is free to the public. Anyone can go there and do any work. We know that right lately the heart surgery has put Louisville on the map, both at Jewish Hospital and at Humana Audubon. And so Louisville has a lot to offer here for tourists, and there are many, many other things. That the Actors Theater is known all over the world. Also, the Louisville Orchestra, and it is a very cultural town, and it has many things of culture, and that is one of the big drawing cards of Louisville. The University of Louisville put us on the map last year, and we hoped that they were going to do it again this year, but they didn't quite make it. But it is a sports town, a very basketball town, especially.
In line with tourism, what can you tell us about the park systems?
Mr. Olmsted, a very famous architect, came here to Louisville and made the plans, designed the parks here. Cherokee Park, Iroquois Park, and Shawnee, and many others. And he also built streets, boulevards, to those parks, which is very outstanding. And just in the news, just recently, there has been some mention of his work here. He was originally from New York, and we are very proud of that. Otter Creek Park is down west of the Louisville, but is owned by the city, and it is a very interesting park in that area. It's very natural, and we have a lot of activity down there of all kinds.
Is there lodging? Do they have lodging?
Yes, they have lodging and dining room, and then various camps for young people and adults too, for that matter. This statue, oh, I wish I knew more about it, but this statue is of Thomas Jefferson, and as I said, he was governor of Virginia at the time Louisville and Jefferson County was organized and was formed. And so we are really proud of the name. He was a very ingenious man. If you've ever been to Monticello, you can realize that he was very creative in many ways. And of course, one of his great reasons for being of fame was because of his signing he wrote the Declaration of Independence, and also was the third president of the United States.
Hayesville is the county seat of Mason County. Mason County's population is 17,189. Area square miles, 241. Rank, 89th. Mason County is located in the 7th Congressional District.
I'm Mary Louise Duke, and I live in Mason County, and we're now standing in Washington, Kentucky, which is in Mason County. Washington was the first county seat of a very, very large area. The river, of course, meant that lots of people would be using it. It was one of the nation's first highways, of course. And the flatboats came down and landed at what was then Limestone. They came up the hill, only 4 miles, but it took them a whole day to get up the hill with their loaded wagons and the things from their flatboats that they'd brought from home. But in 1790, Washington was the second largest town in Kentucky. It had 500 people in 1790, and it still has 500 people. But it really was a very, very lively place because the county seat was here of this huge area. Parts of 19 counties were made from Mason County, so you know it was a large area at that point. The county seat was a lovely stone building down here in the heart of Washington. It was built by Lewis Craig in 1794, and there were many lawyers out here, but when the Indians became quieted and the steamboat became on the scene, the citizens who lived in Maysville then decided that they would like to have the county seat. So the county seat was taken away from Washington in 1848 and moved into Maysville.
Can you tell us a little bit about the courthouse that was here?
It was built of stone in 1794 by Lewis Craig, who really was a marvelous stonemason. He had come out here from Virginia. And we're so delighted now that the Kentucky Historical Society has returned the cornerstone of that beautiful old courthouse back to Mason County. The courthouse burned in 1909. But just this past summer, the Kentucky Historical Society gave us the cornerstone, the keystone of that building that has Lewis Craig's initials, LC 1794. So we're just delighted to have that back in Mason County, have it back home.
Can you tell us a little bit about the restoration in the area right here?
Well, as you know, of course, it was a very old town, and these sidewalks that you see here, these flagstone walks, were laid in 1786 when Washington became a town, and of course then it was Washington, Virginia. And because Kentucky didn't become a state, of course, until 92. That White House right over there was built in 1805, and there are many, many early buildings here. And the Visitor Center, where we just were, is one of the two original log houses on their original site. They do belong to the Commonwealth of Kentucky, those two log houses up there. One's the Visitor Center, the other is the Simon Kenton Trading Store.
Okay. Can you tell us about the current courthouse, which is located in Maysville?
It's a beautiful, beautiful Greek Revival structure. And as I say, the steamboat and the river, the people realized they had the goose that laid the golden egg in that river. And for a long time, they wanted the courthouse. And a big hotel was built out here in order to keep the courthouse here, but it didn't work. The legislature finally moved it downtown. But the people downtown, the city fathers, had built a lovely, great, big town hall. And of course, they had their eye on the county seat at that time. So in 1848, the courthouse, the county seat, was moved from Washington into Maysville in this lovely Greek Revival building. And Washington really went to sleep for a good many years until 1955, when the first restoration was done out here. And then in the 60s, things began to happen. Lots more restorations came on. So things are jumping again in Washington. Maysville is the second largest burley tobacco market in the world. And we have Browning Pulley Works. It started out as the Browning family. Now it's the Browning division of Emerson Electric. And they employ a good many people. There's a bicycle factory here. There's a cotton mill. Kentucky's oldest family-owned industry is located in Maysville. And that's the January and Wood Cotton Mill. Of course, it's here on account of the river being in Maysville. They have a shop out here in Washington, but the factory is in Maysville. And it was started in 1835, so it's Kentucky's oldest family-owned industry.
We're trying to promote tourism for each county. As you've already said, there are many things to see here. In addition to the historical restorations, what else could people come through Mason County and see?
A whole lot of things. You said the wrong thing when you said tourism. To me, the tourist industry in Mason County is going beautifully. It really and truly is. We've been working on it now for a good many years. Washington was a great boon to Mason County's tourist industry with the restoration and finding these original log houses here. And as you will see when you get in downtown Maysville, the architecture down there is entirely different from the architecture here. here. The building boom in downtown Maysville was 1830 to 1850, when the big influx of people from Europe were coming in and coming down the river on the flatboats, and they brought the architecture with them from Europe. If you've ever been to Antwerp or to Bruges, Belgium, it's very, very similar with descending parapets and entirely different from this out here. There are two buildings out here that are later than the rest, and they have that typical architecture that is in Maysville.
Okay. Are there any special events that Mason County holds, an annual event, or isn't Court Day held here?
Mm-hmm. Court Day is the first Monday in October every year, and Simon Kenton Days are out here. Are you familiar with Simon Kenton? Mm-hmm. Well, good, because he was quite a boy. Simon Kenton Days are out here. Frontier Christmas, this is the 20th year for Frontier Christmas, and it originated in Washington as a party to show the community what we had done with their gifts. And it's been a big event ever since. And last year we had a Main Street Festival downtown, so we really have lots of things going. Good. Simon Kenton really was. He was a great person. Now, Daniel Boone got all of the publicity because Daniel had his PR man with him in John Velson. But Simon really didn't have. Now, Daniel Boone went off and left his family, but Simon didn't. Simon, his heart was very, very big. Maybe his heart was better than his business sense. Of course, he met all those people off the flatboats. He took them to his station. So many of them stayed here. Some of them stayed 5 years before they decided where they wanted to settle. And he had this trading store, and he just wanted everybody to help themselves at his house and here at his store. So he ended up broke, and he was in jail here in Washington. But he was such a fine man, and people in Frankfort, in the legislature, knew what a fine man he was, that while he was in jail, the legislature repealed the debtor's law, imprisonment for debt in Kentucky. So we don't have an imprisonment for debt law now in Kentucky on his account. And then, of course, Kentucky was getting a little crowded for him. He liked the open spaces, so then he moved on to Ohio and died in Urbana, Ohio. But he really was a great man. Planted the first corn in northeast Kentucky and did a lot of wonderful things.
LaGrange, the county seat of Oldham County. Oldham County population, 29,786. Area square miles, 190. Rank, 109th. Oldham County is located in the 4th Congressional District.
My name is Dorothy Lamline. I am the president of the Downtown Business Association of LaGrange.
I'm Doris LaFan. I'm